Coming up on the CODE Bet Daily NRL Show, it is preliminary final weekend. It is the best pure weekend of football, and, well, these games look kind of boring due to the bookies' odds. Phil, how are we feeling?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. I like what the bookies have done. I like both the favourites in this game. It's just by how much. So we'll obviously break it down in great detail coming right up, but I like a Brisbane Panthers grand final.
There we go. You need to check it all out. We do a deep dive into all of these games. We find out about Phil's travels around Europe, and apparently there's live TV on Emirates airplanes. But check it out, the CODE Bet Daily NRL Show coming your way right now. Welcome to the CODE Bet Daily NRL Show for the penultimate weekend of the National Rugby League. It is preliminary final time. Two big games, but the odds don't really suggest that. I'm your host, Alex Donnelly. I'm a writer at codebet.com.au. You should go check out that website. It is pretty cool. A lot of stuff going up there this week. I have written 2,000 words about Collingwood taking on the GWS Giants in the AFL preliminary final. Phil is here from us in Poland, but of course, he's pumping out his previews as we speak. But look at him there in his Brighton shirt. He is nice and excited as he is heading across to the Amex to watch his beloved Brighton Seagulls take on Bournemouth this weekend. So let's get some self-indulgence out of the way, Phil. How excited are you?
Mate, I'm incredibly pumped. The self-indulgence doesn't end there as I drink out of my
North
bottle
Sydney Bears.
with the North Sydney Bears on it. They're in the New South Wales Cup knock-on effect final this weekend as well against the Rabbitohs. So
beautiful.
It's been I think it's been over a decade since the Bears have been in a New South Wales Cup grand final as well. So, mate, I'm pumped.
I like it how you've managed to take a North Sydney Bears water bottle all the way with you to Poland instead of just picking one up on the way like the rest of us. But that's fantastic gear. But we need to rip into these preliminary finals. Of course, they get underway on Friday night at Accor Stadium with the Penrith Panthers at $1.18 taking on the Melbourne Storm at $5. This gets underway at 7:50 p.m. The line minus 12.5 for the Panthers. You can find plus 13.5 for the Storm. Over 39.5, under 38.5. Really interesting game, but sort of not at the same time. It almost feels boring. And let's get the typical pathetic argument out of the way that I heard in Sydney media this week about Penrith. Phil, it's unfair that Penrith have to play at Accor Stadium and Brisbane get to play at Suncorp. Literally been that for 100 years of the rugby league. Finals are at Allianz Stadium or at Accor, unless you're an interstate team. They're the rules. Suck it up.
Yeah, pretty much. If people are arguing that the Broncos shouldn't be able to play at Suncorp Stadium, then they're clearly yelling at clouds. That was a sellout by midweek, I'm pretty sure. My understanding is there are still seats available for this game at Accor, so it'll be interesting to see where that one settles. Obviously going to be way more, black, dark blue, chocolate brown, all the, 50 shades of Penrith out there.
Pink.
The bright pink, of course, too. Yeah, maybe a little bit of purple, but probably not a hell of a lot. So the Panthers are going to enjoy, a pretty raucous atmosphere out at Homebush, you would think. And deservedly, they start as pretty hot favourites. That line, when I started this betting preview, would have been over 24 hours ago now. The line was sort of sitting around that 12.5 mark. It felt like it was going to head out to 13.5. I'm pretty sure that's where it will settle. The late mail is that Jerome Luai will be good to go.
That's come out in the last hour. He's good to go.
Sorry?
It's come out in the last hour that he is indeed good to go.
Yeah. I'm sure Jerome Hughes is going to play as well. They're going to take the risk. In my preview, I even made a sort of a comparison though to what the Cincinnati Bengals are dealing with right now, and Joe Burrow, who did his calf in training camp, and he was all good to go couple of weeks before week one, got through week one, and then he twinged it at the back end of week two on the weekend. So those calf problems can linger, but the Storm just have to take the risk with Jerome Hughes at this point. I'm getting my Jeromes mixed up almost, but I've managed to plough forward so far.
Yeah.
So, you can't get value on the Panthers at 13 plus, but you can take them. You could have taken them at the line minus 12.5 at better value yesterday. Work that one out.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, look, Panthers are deserving favourites. I think they've won 7 games in a row now where they've had the rest advantage,
Okay.
and obviously they've had a major rest advantage coming into this one, and they've been able to get a little bit healthier. Obviously, the Nathan Cleary situation was interesting. Hurting his finger at training this week, so whether or not that's going to play any kind of impact in this one, we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, he's going to play, but is he sort of worrying about how he's catching the ball and that kind of stuff? It can obviously impact grabbing in defence as well. We know the Storm are going to target Luai in defence. Do they maybe try and go at Cleary as well, just to see whether that's bothering him early in this one? We'll have to wait and see there. So yeah, look, there's a lot to sort of weigh up. A low over under 39.5.
Same as last week.
And if an over under is under 40, I'm probably just getting on the overs, because I think we know that the Panthers are going to hold up their end of the bargain in this one. It's just whether or not the Storm can, muster up some points here and there as well. These sides only met back in round 23, and the Panthers dominated them 26 points to 6. That one was at Bluebet Stadium, of course, so different venue, same city, and you're looking at a Panthers side that are just a lot fitter. Isaac Tungo, he's been in some doubt with a pec problem as well, but it looks like he'll start at left centre for the Panthers. So you look at this Penrith team on paper, and they've somehow, for the most part, managed to do this in both premiership seasons so far, and that's how it's setting up this year as well, where they're essentially at full strength on paper.
Yeah.
No, they're not at full strength, because we've spoken about a couple of the players that are dealing with things, but every team's dealing with stuff this time of year. The Panthers forward pack is entirely at full strength. The Panthers backline is the full strength lineup that they started in round 1 and in the preseason, minus Tyron May, who, their left winger who did his ACL in the World Club Challenge, I believe. So, the Panthers are pretty much at full strength, and that gives me concern around the Storm competing in this game. They're going to win the battle through the middle, you would think. The Storm have been obviously limping in with their form, and yeah, I just think the Panthers are going to be able to get on a roll. I think it's one of those games where they get out to an early lead and then just blow them off the park in the last 15, 20 minutes. Sania Taruva strikes me as a good try-scoring option for the Panthers, the left winger. Off the back of a strong forward pack, I think it's going to be either Stephen Crichton or Brian To'o on the right scoring the opening try, or this kid Taruva. He's had a strong breakout year, and Penrith's starting left winger has scored at least one try in 10 straight games. So that bodes incredibly well for him out on that left wing as well, particularly with Tungo back in the team at left centre and Jerome Luai back in the team on the left side of the field as well. I like Dylan Edwards as an anytime try scoring option at $2.90. Given that this Penrith pack are probably going to win that battle through the middle, give their halves great go forward, lay that strong foundation. Dylan Edwards is going to pop up as a support player through the middle of the ground. Liam Martin's an interesting one at value as well. $3.35 on Top Sport for an anytime try-scoring bet. He's one of the best try-scoring edge forwards in the NRL, full stop. Yeah. Up there with the likes of Britton Nikora and Hudson Young, the Sharks and Canberra players respectively. He scored a try in 4 straight games for Penrith. So I think those guys can all score in this one. And all you have to do is turn on the tape of Melbourne's game last week. They barely beat a Roosters team that basically listed a reserve grade level back line. It took some Will Warbrick magic at the end of that game them to get over the line. He's a good try scoring bet for this one at $3 on Ladbrokes Will Warbrick. But look, I think the Panthers romp this one home and, they win something like 32-12 and it hits the overs as well. I'm tipping the Panthers minus 12.5 at $1.90, but it's morning here. I haven't gone back and checked where that's at. It might be 13.5 now, and I'm probably still taking the Panthers there as well.
Right now, it's minus 12.5 for the Panthers. But yeah, like just as you said, like Penrith just almost looks sort of too simple for them, as we sort of broke down on the Daily Show earlier this week between myself, Stats Guy, and James. It's like you almost see this being like a 20-6, a 24-12 win for Penrith, where it's never in doubt. They get a couple of tries up early and then they just sort of shut it down and just run it up the center for the rest of the game. No injuries, no risks. And they just get through to the grand final and try and be as cherry up as possible, because the Storm, I want to give them a chance, but they struggled to beat the Roosters last week. And really, a couple of refereeing decisions did go their way leading to that win. So I'm just like, I can't see a way for them to win this game unless Penrith just have a horrendous day out and there's a bunch of injuries to already some sore bodies. Is it possible at all? Like, does Craig Bellamy have another trick left in him?
It is possible. We saw in round 26 where nothing went Penrith's way and Parramatta ended up just putting them to the sword.
Yep.
Different circumstances. Obviously, they were without a couple of players, and then they lost Jerome Luai at an important time in that game with that shoulder injury. It can happen. It happened 2 years ago in the preliminary final, where the Melbourne Storm outfit were not only the favourites in that game against Penrith in the preliminary final. That was up at Suncorp Stadium in the COVID era, I believe. But on top of that Melbourne Storm outfit were historically one of the best rugby league teams we've ever seen. Yes, it was in the Volandis ball era where, the point scoring was off its mind. But, Melbourne were the odds-on favourites to beat Penrith and go through to the grand final in that game. They were the best team all year. I think they won about 20 games in a row. And then Penrith just, outplayed them in that prelim. The Storm looked nervous. They were off their game. They were dropping lots of ball and nothing went right for them.
Yep.
And Penrith got home in a pretty tight one in the end. So it can happen. I know we're going to be transitioning to the other prelim as well shortly as well. So I just get the feeling that one of these two games is not going to go according to script.
Yeah.
It's just a case of which one it will be. And that's kind of, as we'll get to, I'm sure I'm going to get one of my predictions wrong, but we have to kind of play each ball on its merits here. And I suppose the other thing is Penrith can win big finals in different ways. We've seen them win the tight ones. We've seen them blow teams off the park early as well. So what are we going to get here? We don't know for sure, but we think the Panthers are going to win by enough.
Yep, I like it. Let's move on to that second game. As you said, it is on a Saturday night, 7:50 p.m, Suncorp Stadium. The Brisbane Broncos are $1.27 favourites, minus 10.5, over under at 42.5. The New Zealand Warriors are $3.95. The line for them is plus 10.5. The underdog has covered in the last 8 between the two. Brisbane have won their last 9 matches as favourite when they've had the rest. But of note, the last 5 games between these two teams, the record is 2 wins apiece and a draw. Very interesting game coming into this. The Warriors got the big win last week back home, and everyone just they'll just roll into Brisbane and get rolled. But as we've sort of said all year, this New Zealand Warriors outfit is plucky, and on their best, if they come to play, they can punch Brisbane directly in the mouth early and cause a shock. I'm pretty keen on the Warriors at the line. That's where my starting point is on this game.
Okay, I love that. I hope so. I hope it's an interesting game. I think this is probably of the 2 preliminary finals, this is probably the one that more fans have been circling all week as the game that that they're really looking forward to, given the Warriors season. Brisbane are obviously deserving favourites for this one as well, but it should be a great game. And of the two, again, like we were sort of talking about last week, this one feels like the game where the overs is probably under more threat, even though it's at 42.5 versus 39.5. For over 42.5 total points, you can get $1.95 on Top Sport last time I checked, which was great value. I like the over in this one. The Broncos, they beat the Penrith Panthers in Penrith in round one, 13-12. They started the season well. They've just been pretty much lights out right the way through the season.
Yeah.
No sign of late season fade this time around. They ended up with a regular season record of 18 wins, 6 losses, which is just outstanding given the length of the NRL season and what teams like a Brisbane Broncos have to deal with through the origin period as well. So, full credit to what they've been able to do. And then, to beat the Storm 26 points to nil a fortnight back in the first week of the finals, where there might have been some nerves, they haven't had a lot of finals experience under Kevy Walters, and to do what they did was incredibly impressive. One of the interesting side notes to this game is Reece Walsh, the fullback for the Broncos, who's obviously, he probably had a breakout season prior to this year, but when he was a Warriors player, but he's taken his game to a whole new level this season, obviously, and now he finds himself in a preliminary final against his old team at Suncorp Stadium. It's quite poetic for Reece Walsh, and he's going to be going hard in this one. We know that sometimes emotions can catch up with him. He's going to be pushing the buttons hard in this one. So I think he's a good anytime try scorer bet at $2.40 on Ladbrokes. He's going to run hard at lines. I think he's up for a big one. The Warriors, they're playing their first preliminary final in 12 years. We know. Remember, they got to the grand final back in 2011 where they lost to the Daly Cherry Evans debut seasoned Manly Seagulls. But I get the feeling with the Warriors that they kind of played themselves out of nervous football in last week's game.
Yeah.
They got out to that lead against Newcastle. Then the Knights worked their way back into the contest early in the second half, and you were just thinking, "Oh dear, this is going to be the end for the Warriors." They had that bad week one loss against Penrith, and now they're the team looking more nervous. And then they show that they have that next gear. They go again, and sort of the faith that I placed in the Warriors last week when we were sort of previewing that game, that was the football they showed. They showed that they're above those kinds of hurdles and moments, and now they have to prove that once again. Most games like this, I'm gonna play the percentages and side with the team that's had that rest advantage. That's been the more consistent outfit all year, that's playing at home. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think the Warriors are the better bet to cover of the underdogs across both of these two preliminary finals. But that said, I'm still taking the Broncos minus 10.5.
Okay, so we've talked about all sort of the machinations of this match, and we've ended up with basically the two favourites covering well. And as you've said, it's a preliminary final, so anything can happen. For me, of the two games where something could be a little bit fugazi, or it's like, oh, whoa, this is a match. I know it's what the odds say, but when you sort of look at the two rosters and everything of both teams in both games, it's like, well, this is the game that the Warriors could jump and run them, because I know the Broncos rested a bunch of players a month ago when they got smashed by the Storm, but they still did, and they had a couple of them play. So some of them have only played one game in 28 days when we start this game on Saturday night. So is there a chance that, rest versus rust takes over? Or I'm not sure. I just feel like the Warriors have got something in them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Adam Fanua-Blake, he got on the try try scorers list once again last week. He's one of the form props in the world, if not the form prop. The only guy really that's potentially better. If we're going to come up with some BS rankings thing, is Payne Haas. They're both playing in this game. The Warriors have a really good forward pack. Tohu Harris is your Pat Carrigan as well. So to an extent, they'll probably cancel each other out. But yeah, look, I like the Broncos just from 1 to 17. Just like we spoke about with Jerome Hughes in the last preview, Sean Johnson is the one coming into this game with a calf problem. And again, he got through last week. He got his 10 minute early mark, but his calf is not 100%. And we saw what happened at the end of week 2 in Cincinnati's game with the Baltimore Ravens and Joe Burrow's calf. So, there's also a world where Sean Johnson hurts himself in the first 10 minutes and it's game over for the Warriors. We obviously hope that's not the case. But again, playing the percentages, I'm siding with the Broncos minus the 10.5. But the Warriors they're a big chance of covering. They are a chance of winning this game. And, we'll just have to wait and see. The Broncos, by the way, in terms of the head-to-head, they claimed a narrow win a little bit earlier on in the season in Napier. They beat the Warriors and they were resting key personnel as well. I sort of remember previewing that game and I thought the Warriors would be far too strong for a Broncos side that was missing some stars. So that was arguably one of Brisbane's more impressive wins of the season when you sort of reflect on what they've been able to achieve this year. Obviously, the Broncos won't be holding anyone back for this game. So, yeah, look, we've mentioned the fact that the underdog has covered the line in each of the last 8 meetings between these sides, but I just get the sense that trend has to end at some point, and perhaps it's here.
Okay, I don't mind it. All right, Phil, it's time for...
It's best bets, it's best bets, it's time for all the best bets.
All right, Phil, what is your best bet in these 2 preliminary finals?
Yeah, I lost you a little bit there. I'm hoping you've still got me. We'll plow through. My best bet is Dylan Edwards. Anytime try scorer in this game. As I mentioned, you can get $2.90 on Ladbrokes, just decent value. And I think the Storm could get torched up through the middle in this one, which is going to lend itself to Dylan Edwards popping up in support. Maybe it's a forward that Leniu, Leota. That just pokes their nose through a half gap up the middle off the back of a quick play the ball, and then it's Dylan Edwards in support. Or he might go and he might be on the end of one a little bit further out wide as well. So that's where I'm leaning in this one. I did want to get a first try scorer bet in there as well. Stephen Crichton, he's paying $10 on Ladbrokes. He's been the first try scorer a bunch of times this year for Penrith. He's been an anytime try scorer a bunch this year for Penrith, obviously at right centre, playing inside Brian To'o, who is the short-priced anytime try-scoring option and first try-scoring option on the right wing. But I think Stephen Crichton, he's got that size and speed to sort of, just hit the gas pedal close to the line. He's had an outstanding campaign, and he's got the matchup as well. Justin Olam is going to be defending on him. And for those that are sort of just catching up, Justin Olam has played a bunch of reserve-grade footy this year. He's been a staple of this Melbourne Storm team for a number of seasons, but not this year. He returns to the lineup ahead of last week's game with young Tonomapea suffering some kind of injury. And Justin Olam did not look confident in defence. Last week against the Roosters, he made a bunch of bad decisions where he got himself in all kinds of trouble, tying himself in knots, trying to shoot out of the line. and Stephen Crichton is a quality player. He's going to take advantage against that kind of uncertainty and lack of defensive confidence. So Crichton's an excellent anytime try scorer bet, but he's also a great first try scorer bet at $10 as well.
I love that confidence. All right, it's time for
Rate my multi.
It's a two-legger. It's pretty simple. I'm going Panthers and the unders into Warriors at the line and over 42.5. You can get $11.70 for that rate my multi. What do we rate it as there, Phil?
Good value. Good value. I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10 because I think you've found very plausible outcomes, and you've got some decent value there. In saying that, you've gone against some of the outcomes that I'm predicting.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't get up into the excellent range.
It was fine.
Yeah. So that's why it doesn't get up into the excellent range. But yeah, again, you found some value there, and it's all very, very plausible.
I like it. All right. Well, that is the CODE Bet Daily NRL preview done and dusted for preliminary final weekend. Phil, where are we going to find you for our big grand final preview next week?
I believe I'll be back here. We might have to record a day early. I'll let you know because I'm going to be landing back in Sydney on NRL Grand Final Day.
Okay.
I don't know how that bodes for my ability to watch the AFL Grand Final.
Yeah, I think you're in some Barney rubble unless Emirates has some in your first class seat in Emirates. Unless you've got the Wi-Fi, you might be in trouble.
Well, to be honest, on the flight over, I flew with it was an Emirates flight from Bangkok to Dubai or something like that, and they ended up having like a live TV service and a sports channel, and I got live Premier League on the flight.
Something.
It was unreal. I think it was it was a United was playing someone. Nice. I got the back end of one game and then pretty much the entirety of the following game as well. It was wild.
That's a way to make a flight go quick.
Yeah. So who knows? They actually had some NRL playing later on that same channel. So it's actually not out of the realms of possibility, but we'll have to wait and see. But so yes, I will still be recording for you next week in Poland before jumping on a flight home.
We may also get the NRLW tips as well, as I believe their grand final is next week too. So there'll be something interesting going on there. But we are done and dusted this week for the CODE Bet Daily NRL Show. Check us out on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, X, and of course, Threads. Subscribe to us on all of your podcast apps. If you're listening to this on Spotify, this is also under the NRL Show. Got the EPL Show, the AFL Show, Hold All Tickets brought to you by Punters and Betfair, and of course, the Daily Show. And if you're on Apple Podcast, well, this all just lobs in the same place. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, mate. Always a pleasure. And
sure
go the Seagulls.
Enjoy your trip across to Brighton. Please send us
it was a big Europa League game tonight against Athens and then Bournemouth on Sunday. I will be there.
Please send us videos so we can chuck them up on our social medias. But punters, make sure that you gamble responsibly. And let's hope that your picks come in for NRL preliminary final weekend, because CODE Bet Daily is out.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.